from three different perspectives. كيف ممكن احنا نشوف الفاليو وdevelop security program حسب best practices. نبدأ اليوم يعني نستعرض الأجندة نشوف الرول تبع السيرفيس بروفايدر how they can support enterprises, small large enterprises across countries. Mr. Ibrahim, Director of Consulting Practice في CBX United Arab Emirates. والnext slides راح يكون أنا Director of Policy and Compliance في National Cyber Security Center في Jordan. الثيرد توبيك راح يكون عبارة عن Cyber Risk Quantification. Engineer Mohammed, Peer Advisor, President للFair Institute Chapter Middle East and Africa. تفضل Mr. Ibrahim. Start.
Just a quick IT test because I can help once you start as an IT guy or an IT guy. So, hello everyone. I'm gonna speak in English because I see some Arabic speakers. I think everyone is fine, but I'm happy to speak in Arabic as much as I can, if you allow me. So thank you, Adham, for the great introduction. Pleasure of having us here as well. Thank you once again to His Excellency Bassam for hosting us and inviting all of us, whether we're speakers or delegates or attendees or participants in this great event. My name is Ibrahim. I work for a service solution provider in UAE called CPX. And today I'm going to speak about the role of organizations such as CPX, but such as well we have friends from KPMG, my ex-workplace. We have a lot of folks, and we have a lot of great colleagues around, the Big Four, the Big Three, the system integrators, the Accentures, the IBMs. Everyone has their own, let's say, special role and potential opportunity to support national cybersecurity programs. Without further ado, I prepared only 5 slides, and I know it's the end of the day, so I hope I make it quick. All right, so we always wondered, I'm sure Adham you'll be happy with this, because everyone in Jordan and around Jordan expects a lot from Adham and His Excellency Bassam. And sometimes we need to think, what does the regulator or the council or the center actually expect from us? What about the bottom-up support? What about is like, I'm going to give you something to take back value from you as an enabler, as an incubator, as a national security center, an authority, whatever is that. So I was thinking about that question, and I found that basically, to answer that, we need to think about let's take a step back, what does the National Cybersecurity Centers actually look for? Definitely they want to build capabilities to achieve the goals and objectives and all of that. So if we start by the capabilities, and if I use the NIST language to identify, protect, detect, respond, recover, pardon me for the image, tested it 3 times, I don't know what happened, but yeah. So about these capabilities, we're gonna always think about a cybersecurity program from a national security perspective. They may have, of course, a strategy, a doctrine, and all of that, depending if it's from a military context, a non-military context, industrial context. And we have, along with it, we need to have national cybersecurity policies. So the program and the program plan will enable us to go from point A to point B, and then B to C, etc., and so forth, according to the strategy, to build those capabilities, people, process, technology, culture, and all the, let's say, 7 enablers, maybe from a COVID language or a COVID perspective. However, the policies also will allow us to make sure that that program to reach the capabilities in a secure fashion. Of course, I'm not going to tell you here things that you already know, but I'm going to skip this slide to go into the next one. And I'm not sure if you stumbled across something called a research or a methodology, if you will, from the IISS, the International Institute for Strategic Studies. They came in 2019, which was a really, really good time, especially like post-COVID and all of that,
The world was going quote unquote crazy, all over the place from a business continuity, crisis management perspective, not just from a cybersecurity perspective. And what they did, they assessed the cyber capabilities for more than 15 countries, and they looked at the common capabilities that each and every country need to have from a national security perspective. And they came up with 7. So, can you guess number 1, what is it? What's the number 1 capability a national cybersecurity program must have? Framework? Yep. So the strategy, the doctrine, framework. There we go. Mohammed, you give some people the slides. Absolutely. All right. So, and the second one, of course, is about governance, command and control. Things need to be in place, especially when we talk about, the C4 ISR, the C5 ISR, the C6 ISR. When we talk about not just the computer cyber communication, we talk about intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance from a military standpoint that goes even way beyond cyber. Today, cyber is really just like, marine, space. It's another 5th dimension in the military operations, and actually very few countries have really established a program beyond, let's say, the paperwork to implement certain capabilities in the realm of cybersecurity. Now, the core cyber intelligence capability is the 3rd one, obviously, from an intelligence perspective, the empowerment and independence, and I'll come to that in a second, and it means that from a dependence perspective is that in case of emergency, not just you have a plan B, but you can operate on your own without the support or reliance on other third-party vendors, other national programs, etc. and so forth, as much as you can. Ideally, it should be 0, but as much as you can. So, and by the way, you can reach out to me post this session. I can share with you the methodology. It's called the Cyber Power Project Methodology. You can access it, it's publicly available. And they came up, of course, with the leadership from a global security perspective, and the resilience from a response perspective, from a readiness perspective. Are we ready to attack, to respond to attacks? And how do we respond to the attacks? Are we doing it in a resilient manner or not? Let me, by the way, ask you, because resilience is pretty much becoming like a buzzword. Just like how cyber, came into space. And I'm one of the people actually to be blamed in the Middle East that I've used the word cyber, because we all know that cyber is part of InfoSec, but it is what it is. So who can basically explain what resilience should be? Beyond definition. I mean, how can I say that I'm cyber resilient? What do I need to have? Pardon me?
First, we have to identify the risk.
Okay. And how does that make me resilient from the context of, let's say, responding to attacks?
Being,
so let's say,
being ready.
Okay.
Being ready. I mean,
ready physically.
I mean, being
mentally,
ready in different ways. I mean,
technically,
whether technically, educational wise.
Awesome.
I mean, the overall solution mindset that I have,
awesome.
How I want to respond, detect, and all of that.
Thank you. Can you take a small example from where you left off, actually? So let's say I'm a SOC analyst tier 1, the poor guy who drinks a lot of coffee and waits for, there's a lot of noise, false positives and whatnot. And imagine, because of the pressure of the work, the SLAs, really tight and short time, response times, if I am an impulsive person, I'm too impulsive, do you think that's good? That means I'm gonna be quick in response. Why? What can happen?
You will respond to that urgent action.
Maybe too quick, then thank you.
Yes.
Those days, exactly, those days are gone where someone plugs off the cable. If we're hacked, disconnect the server, we lost a huge opportunity for forensic data, the packet capture, the memory dump, etc. and so forth and all of that. So I'll pause there. I'm happy to give more examples during the Q&A session. And of course, we have offensive cybersecurity capabilities, which goes, of course, at national level, at country level. Now, where we, as cybersecurity, let's say, solutions and service provider, we can help, in my humble opinion, we can help in these 5 for obvious reasons, because we do have the capabilities, the service portfolio, the solution portfolio that can enable those programs as an upward support and enablement for us to expect the downward support and enablement and acceleration from our national security agencies, centers, regulators, and authorities. So yeah, on the first one, let me give a few examples. I mean, we've heard about many programs to implement strategies, but they look great on paper, if you allow me, but they don't really exist in action. And this is one of the criteria, or criterion, that the cyber power methodology actually uses to assess, and they did in 2019, when they assessed those 15 countries. Number two is related to the policies, baselines, frameworks, obviously. For example, I can say that it's publicly available information in UAE, actually KPMG team have finalized the national cybersecurity policies, and you can actually download them. They are free of charge, publicly available. If you go to CSC website, you can find them over there. So that's something really, really amazing, where, for example, the UAE Cybersecurity Council may rely on the likes of KPMG, CPX, and others to build the capability. Cultural change, really important. I can guess that I don't need to speak about that, because we all sometimes, may have an opportunity, but sometimes we may bleed because of cultural, resistance to change and all that, cultural elements that we need to look at. That's something which we, as consultants, we have to play a role in. Quote unquote, call me crazy, but sometimes you may say the same thing, but if you say it as a third-party consultant, people will listen to you. Because you have the consultant tag, let's be honest. All right, of course I'm gonna go quicker here. So we build cyber command and control centers, especially when we talk about, as Dr. Mohammed Al-Kuwaiti, His Excellency, mentioned in the morning, along with Engineer Bassam, Engineer Saleh, Engineer Ahmed from Egypt. They all mentioned pretty much in the great panel discussion, building, national capabilities from a national SOC, military SOC, critical SOCs, and all of that. We can definitely support in building that from people, process, technology. And when I say people, I really mean it, people. When I ask my client, do you have the people? Yeah, they exist, they're over there. Well, I'm not talking about capacity, do you have the people as capability? Yes, we interviewed them and they have great CVs and they passed the test. Okay, what about the 1 month in line? Thank you. 6 months down the line. Are they still up to date in terms of knowledge, skills, and abilities? Oh yeah, I'm doing training programs. Okay, show me the training programs. I may see certification-based programs. Doesn't make people job ready. Yeah. So, yeah, this is one of the things definitely which we really have to rewire the way we look at. Of course, it goes without saying about the dependence. As I mentioned, the regulators, the national security centers, with all due respect, they can't do it on their own. They need our support, they need our help, whether if it's on commercial or non-profit fashion. I'm not talking about that. Mohammed, for example, will come as well from a fair institute perspective in a non-profit fashion. So it doesn't matter. What we really look at here is how we can have that global outreach, regional and local outreach, to leverage on the ecosystem of having proper support towards all the empowerment and independence which we can achieve as much as possible. And last but not least, before I move to my final slide, the testing and validation labs. I'm not gonna speak. If anyone here from banks or financial industry? Have you ever dealt with HSMs? Okay, unfortunately, when I go to, not just financial sector, when I ask the CISOs, where are the crypto keys? Yeah, they're over there. They're in the server. Where? Okay. HSM? I'd love to hear that answer. But most of the times they disappoint me, man. They tell me, no, my crypto key is on the load balancer. My crypto key is on Tomcat server, Apache server. Yes, absolutely. So, now when we look into HSMs, do we really assess them even at supply chain? Do we really, for example, if I'm a banker, I'm going to be looking at PCI HSM certified HSM. I'm going to be looking at FIPS level 3 certified HSM to make sure that during transit in supply chain it wasn't tampered with. Yada yada yada. So all of that needs to happen. And when we have basically like local testing and validation labs or regional testing validation labs, that adds extra layer of not just maturity, but of confidence and assurance as well. Last but not least, how do we build better incident response and recovery capabilities? I'll come to that in a second because I want to exit maybe my talk with that. It goes without saying, management systems, they're not just an ISO certificate, they're a commitment. The PDA cycle will always be there. So the PDCA to continue to improve the management systems and do better, more and different will be always there. And whether you're certified or not, the way you're going to manage the risks always require definitely a supporting hand. Again, this is why we need to be honest. We can't be just like sitting in the back of our offices, let me be too honest, and say, hey, I'm expecting from my regulator so-and-so, and they're not supporting much. Or they're too slow in releasing that document. But did we really support them? Did I really maybe ask if there is any committee that volunteers in reviewing that document? Just a small example. I'm not saying that you should volunteer, I'm saying that we even made an attempt towards that thought process, which again goes to the culture of the ecosystem that goes top down and bottom up. So last but not least, if I talk about the NIST 861, people talk about detection, analysis, containment, recovery, all of that. It's like no one really talks about this. No one really talks, not no one, few people talks about post-incident report, and it really bites me off because why it's a report? It should be a meeting, and the report is an outcome of a meeting, of a discussion, of what we should do more or less and different. More training, better training. Those days when you put people, to play with Metasploit, I'm sorry, they're done. I started my career as a pen tester, as a guy doing coding for a living. Today we have cyber ranges, we have, resilient and immersive cyber labs and all of that, so there's a lot of things that we have today which, quote unquote, that are a luxury that can be leveraged. Imagine if I can tell you that there is an airplane, and pardon me if I've taken maybe a minute extra, I wrote an article a year ago and I said, imagine that you have a well-built airplane, top technology, AI, all of that, and the pilot is not really trained. They've graduated from the flight school, they've got some simulation, VR kind of training. Would you fly that plane?
With risk, maybe.
With risk, would you fly that plane?
Of course not.
Man, you're the highest person with risk appetite. Okay, so it's the same thing. Building the SOC. Oh, the SIM, the SOAR, yeah, I get that. But what about the analyst? The analyst, the guy driving the car. What about the engineer? The guy underneath with all the black spots, that looks under the car. So. Anyways, last but not least, of course, it goes without saying, the rehearsals, the simulations, tabletop exercises, which we're going to be doing also at CPX and UECSC over ADIPEC next week, yeah. And the week after, inshallah, it will be the OIC event, which we're inviting more than 57 countries to do, inshallah, hopefully, we're aiming at a Guinness World Record for the highest number of participants, by countries, and a lot of other variables to play in a very effective, real-life cyber response competition as the techies, and the other hat as tabletops to engage in strategic decision-making, because guess what? The C-levels always have a role in the IR process. It's not the analyst, not the tier 1 only, not the tier 2 only, not the SOC engineer, not the SOC manager only. Above the CISO layer, I need an immediate change to be approved. I don't have the luxury to go for an IR retainer. Don't tell me if you have a ransomware attack, you're gonna wait for releasing 3 RFPs? Or sorry, 1 RFP looking for 3 bidders? Well, bye-bye. Your data is gone. Not just encrypted and you lost it. It's out there, exfiltrated, sold for peanuts, etc. and so forth. So I'm gonna pause here. I'll give it to Adham. Adham, please. And by the way, we have a Q&A session. If you have any questions, more than happy to take them on it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ibrahim, for the interesting slides. I will quickly introduce the Jordanian National Cybersecurity Framework in a nutshell. That we need to consider cyberspace as a 5th domain from classical schools or military schools. There was land considered the first domain of war between countries and armies, then sea, then space, then air and space. Now, the most advanced countries consider cyberspace as fifth domain, which is we need to underscore the importance of this cyberspace, and it requires special requirements other than the classical way of doing things. The philosophy of the framework, most of you were part of this engagement with several government entities, maybe the regulator, the financial one, the CPG, maybe a couple of you are here. We center our framework on risk capabilities. Without having this capability within your security program, we are unable to understand several kinds of threats that are facing or undermining our enterprises that contains our critical assets. So I will not read from the slides, but quickly our framework again is fighting compliance or security on paper only, just to check boxes that we have that things. No, we are fighting, we are enemy of those people who are doing the compliance things. We are teaching the entities and enabling them and empowering them to think outside the box by building the capabilities that they need. So just to conclude here, we are building a regulatory framework, not a control framework, and this framework that we have developed internally from Jordanian brains, it is not copied from any framework around the world. It is developed by experts. I am one of them, and Mohammed as well, and so many experts. The least one of us is certified with more than 7 certifications from global entities. So some of you maybe be confused, saying I have a framework for controls. Why do I need to use your framework? Again, this is a regulatory framework in Arabic. For those who understand Arabic, it's to يحدد المتطلبات التنظيمية فيما يخص الأمن السيبراني. لذلك الكنترولز هي مرحلة لاحقة، policies, procedures إلى آخره هي مرحلة لاحقة. Again, this is the full picture of the frameworks that talk about the controls. Our framework is becoming in the upper box, which is the management framework. So it teaches you how to build the capabilities and to monitor and understand the risk that you are facing. So the Jordanian framework built on 6 main principles in brief: strategic, enterprise-driven, livable, economical, capability-based, trustable. All these principles are demonstrated in the full implementation guide. I will not go deeply and demonstrate these things. But here is a very high-level component or boxes of our Jordanian National Cybersecurity Framework. Again, it consists of several boxes. You may wonder why are these boxes are here. We are linking the academia and service provider, as mentioned by Mr. Ibrahim, for example. We need to deal with third parties, and maybe that third party is dealing with another party. So we need to take into consideration that some risk may be attacking us or undermining our mission from that third party. So we take into account that side. Academia, unfortunately, our education system in Jordan needs a solid review, especially when it comes to cybersecurity. So you need to keep up with the future jobs demand that enforce us to keep ourselves up to date and update our curriculums at undergraduate level. The middle side of the framework under the entity capabilities, it is like the life cycle. So we get security in design. We are not looking for quick fixes. We are looking for how to understand the risk by building proper capabilities to defend against any cyber attack. And this cannot be achieved by having a single control or control portfolios. But it requires deep understanding of several kinds of threats that could be materialized into real damage or risk. So these in the middle, from portfolio to ecosystem, it simulate and emulate the life cycle of each product or any process within the enterprise. The left side, we have Dr. Hiba is managing that box, Dr. Hiba Al-Haraj, national awareness, which is it's a heavy task because the awareness should not go deeply, but we need to acknowledge that there's an imminent threat posed on our enterprises, on our assets, and our data. The national excellence is managed by someone else, it's not here, but we need for organizations in Jordan who are applying for King Abdullah II, for His Majesty King Abdullah II Excellence Award, to be compliant with this framework. And the compliance here is not checking boxes, is to take it seriously by implementing what they need to implement based on their context and their mission. And go deeply for one layer below this, we look for the, after entity building the proper capabilities, we need to measure that maturity. And the maturity is not fixed for all entities, but it should be diverged from one entity to another. It depends on the severity or the risk profile of that entity. And all of these things so far I'm talking about briefly, just to protect the service and data and to maintain the service that we provide. So this can be linked with the resiliency as mentioned by Mr. Rahim. Without having those three boxes, the data service business continuity in our mind, we will not be able to understand why we are defending against the bad guys. Sorry. One more layer below. Now we talk about the framework. Controls. Controls means they are justified by risk. Here we have good understanding of risk, so we can choose the proper control. The red one, it is the audit, it is assurance function. We need to make sure the requirements are implemented as expected without filling the checkboxes. And at the end, we need to make sure that we are continually monitoring the performance of our boxes or our processes, as well our risk within the cyberspace that becomes very well. Now, this is what we envisioned, because we are strongly believers in risk quantification, like no other countries in the region. We strongly believe that to understand the risk profile of that sector or that entity, we need to have proper understanding of our exposure to cyber attacks. And the exposure here is translated into financial numbers or dollars. These dollars numbers are dummy, just for registration purposes. It demonstrates that how we perceive the exposure at that sector. So this sectoral exposure, from these numbers we understand which sector is prone to more risks for threats after being materialized, it will be transformed into risks. Here, one example quickly. For example, CBG must be able to aggregate all the exposures from bottom to this level, to its level, at the regulator level. So all of these combined can be collectively give us an overall exposure of that sector. And our framework, the Jordanian framework, enable us, enable each regulator in Jordan, and enable each entity in Jordan to make these calculations, to make informed decisions. And this cannot be achieved without building the capabilities that are mentioned within the framework. Now, the loss exposure is it is a financial number, but it gives us a clear value, a clear vision about this value, how that sector is doing very well to protect its assets. This is a nutshell. We are doing workshops across several entities, government and private, in Jordan, and this principle is growing and in demand, and we will see a huge result by the end of this year. of these efforts are almost done. So I need to welcome Mr. Mohammed and Rahim for his efforts to promote cyber risk quantification. He's well known. I will not introduce him more than this, so he can take over. Thank you.
Thank you, Adham. Yes. Assalamu alaikum and good afternoon. So, what's FAIR? I'm the co-chair of the Middle East and Africa chapter of FAIR Institute. And what's FAIR? FAIR Institute is a non-profit organization composed of three groups of people. The risk managers or risk leaders, cybersecurity leaders, and business leaders. And we have one central mission, which is maybe solving a problem which is maybe facing all of us, or most of us. Do we need to transform or do we need to secure? And it looks like it's a very, it's a very conflicting objectives. Because transformation means we need to go public, we need to go digital, we need to go on internet, which is by itself is a vulnerable platform.
Fast.
And fast. We have to do this fast. So our mission actually in this non-profit organization, or what we call it FAIR, Effective Analysis of Information Risk, is to help risk managers, cybersecurity leaders, and business leaders to find the right balance between doing business, growing the business, increasing the digital citizen index, digital equity index, and on the other side to protect our digital assets or our government entities, private entities, assets. And the factor analysis of information risk model is the one that I'm showing here. How to build cyber risk quantification using the right balance between the left wing and the right wing. And in one of the wings, we talk about things related to cybersecurity, threat intelligence, vulnerabilities, blah, blah, blah. And the other one is actually where we identify the business. And this is a very critical one. Because what we noticed actually is most of the time we're having this problem. So I don't know if you have similar problem like this. Anyone who's having this? Well, this lady here is speaking, I don't know, this is Greece, I believe, and she's managing the cybersecurity or the cyber risk management, let's say, practice, while those guys are like CEO, CFO, whatever, other, are not speaking the same language. So this is one of the most problematic, actually, issues that we are trying to solve in FAIR Institute. And currently, the FAIR Institute is a very well-known organization. We're having more than 14,000 members across the globe. And we're having around 23 local chapters. We're very happy, actually, and glad that we have established the Jordanian chapter. It's the first chapter in the region. And many top universities like Harvard, Carnegie Mellon, and MIT are teaching the cyber risk quantification using the FAIR model. And we also glad that we have been doing this with Al Hussein Technical University. So we started to teach those type of courses, and we're also glad that 5, or the youngest 5 across the globe, certified in FAIR model are 5 Jordanians. One of them is grade 11 school. And the FAIR model and the FAIR Institute is becoming like the de facto in cyber risk management. And it's recognized by the group, by NEST, PROSO, and many others. And if you noticed, the ISO 27 in 2022, last year, it changed actually from assess to measure. NEST is also adopting the FAIR model. So it's becoming the de facto to solve the problem that I mentioned. Now, where is the essence of the problem of the cybersecurity? Is it really bad or not? Yes, it's really bad, because if we've seen that cyber crimes costing more than 2 trillion across the globe every year, and the head of national intelligence reported in US reported cybersecurity as a larger threat in US and international terrorism. And as you know, countries are frequently successfully they are attacking each other. And today, if you noticed, the lady from the DoD in the morning session mentioned the economy, I believe 5 or 6 times. So it's really a big issue. And let me ask you one question here before we get into sleep. So who's having the largest economy in the world? China. China first?
Very recent.
Very recent. So who's first?
United States.
So United States, then
Now
China, USA. Then, but the maybe the question: who's having the third?
India. The EU.
Who?
India.
India.
No, EU.
EU. Unfortunately, the largest or the third largest economy in the world is the cyber criminals. Yes. And if we looked at, let's say, what the cyber criminals are doing in this field, okay?
They don't
They're-
know the economy.
No, it's economy. Unfortunately, it's economy. And I will come to this. Now, I don't want to go into, let's say, how we identify or differentiate or describe the economy, but it's actually an economy. They are doing, in this industry, they are doing better than China and US. They are doing 6-something trillion, while the Chinese and the US is doing much. Sorry?
Not unified. They are individuals, groups.
They are not groups, they are not individuals, they are not governments, they are all of this. But let's face this fact, they are doing this. And unfortunately, if this is what they are doing, that means someone else is paying the loss. But this is the fact. They are doing much better than many countries across the globe. And unfortunately, we need to know that 86% of those attacks, cyber attacks, are economically motivated. That means they are doing this for economic purpose. And yet, we as a cybersecurity leaders, we're focusing on technology. So we're focusing on how, we're not focusing on why. And that's why most of actually our, let's say, methodologies, approaches, the way we're tackling cybersecurity is not really efficient and effective. Because we need to understand that internet by itself is vulnerable platform, right? So the more we're going towards digital, the more we're going towards the vulnerable platform. And yet, our business practices is not really incentivizing people to do security. And this problem is not going to go down. It's going to increase. It will always going to increase, because no one of us actually can dare or dare to stop the digital transformation journeys. And if you go to the dark web, sorry, don't go to the dark web, but if you go to the dark web, you can buy something like, let's say, DDoS attack with approximately $500. And you can do something like a dummy banking website with $7. That means it's very, very easy, very cheap to go to, let's say, this part of the world. And those guys, as the cyber criminals, they are using, they are practicing, they are learning the same technologies that we are trying to learn, am I right? So they sometimes faster, and they are more committed. So we're really losing the battle here. And the cyber crimes, it's a very high gain, very low risk. I mean, how many one will think about, let's say, breaking like a bank? Someone can do like transfer hundreds of millions in a bank, and he will not be, or it's very difficult actually to be caught. So it's a very high gain and very low risk. And this will go. This will increase. Okay. So cyber security or cyber security should not be treated as a technology problem. It's not a technology problem. And yet we are focusing in two parts only. We're focusing on technologies. Some governments, they are focusing on government rules. You're pushing me to, I can't go faster than this. But yet we are focusing on two parts only, which is technology. And if we are a very like advanced government, we're focusing on government, but we're not focusing on economics. And this is a big problem here, because we are still teaching in our academic programs, university programs, we're teaching the cyber security technology from technology point of view. We're not teaching those part of economics. So we need to teach them government, we need to teach them the management and also the technical part. And we need to change the how we incentivize people actually to do cyber security. Let's admit this: we are paying people to do development or to develop a program. But how many of us will pay the developer more to do security in the development? We don't do this, am I right? Anyone who's doing this? I mean, we pay for the developer to develop a piece of program, but we don't incentivize him actually to do more and to do it security in a secure way. So we're having a problem actually incentive. And yet our regulation is going towards complaints. We check regulatory based on are you complying or not. So this is a big issue. And if we didn't connect the technology economy and economics and government policies, we will not be able to do this. And most of our organizations, unfortunately, they are not focusing on the most important related concerns. And we have noticed that between 70 to 90% of the high risks listed in the risk registers are not really in fact risks, because we don't really describe the risks in a proper way, which is touching the impact. And in the last 5 years as a FAIR Institute, we haven't seen any organization who had accurately identified their top cyber risks, top related cyber risks. And some reasons is this, which is doing subjective way of doing cyber risk management, or the qualitative one. And what we're doing, and sorry, I need to skip those. But what we are trying to do in the FAIR Institute, or using the FAIR model, is actually to move from. They gave me only 10 minutes, so I will skip those, but we can answer them in the question and answers. If we are still doing those, which is a very qualitative, very subjective ones, we will be one of those between 70 to 90% who's not really capable of highlighting the highest risks. So what we are trying to do in the FAIR Institute is actually train people how to use the FAIR model and identify the 6 types of losses, and to go from the qualitative risk management to quantitative risk management, where we can show the cyber security attacks and the impact in dollars or numbers not on levels like high, medium, low, or green, yellow, and red. It can be integrated with all type of frameworks. It's not a replacement of any framework. It's complementing all frameworks that you might be using. And I will end with this, but we're happy actually to answer any questions if needed. Thank you.
Crypto wallets that contribute to this 6 trillion criminal economy that you mentioned.
See, as we said, like cyber criminals, because they are very advanced people using the advanced technologies they are using blockchain, of course, to transfer money, to transfer, let's say, the rewards of those attacks. And as I said, 86% of those attacks are communicating. And if you go, as I said, to the dark web, you can really get a very high quality of service, doing attacks, doing, let's say, ransomware.
We heard just a few months ago that Jordan could not lost, total losses 25 million. 6 trillion is almost like 100,000 countries like Jordan. So is the United States losing that much of money, or China is losing? I mean, how do you quantify it? You mentioned 6 trillion. That's that's 1/3 of the capitalization of all the United States. So it's coming from the United States in dollars. This is a heavyweight. They must be doing something. Now, I understand that there is money that's 5% back free fraud. The guy that ran away with 200 million. The 60 trillion, just to break it into categories. Like, for example, is it legal money? Is it,
When we mentioned that in FAIR, actually, we identify 6 types of losses. One of them is the direct loss, or the perimeter loss. There are another 5 types of losses that usually we don't calculate. So like the repetition, like the competitive edge, the fines and regulations, it's a really big thing. But one of them is the direct or the primary losses, as I mentioned. But the 6 trillions, by the way, no one can tell you they are 6 or 7 or 8 or 9, because as I said, some of them, like the repetition, the competitive advantage, is not easily to be calculated. So it might be much more than 6, and maybe less than 6. But if you calculate, let's say, the repetition one, the competitive edge, competitive advantage, for example, it might be much higher than this.
I want to take the discussion offline because it's very long question and political, so it's black market and we cannot discuss further the other issue, but we can take it offline. The number of experiments double now. You can share the black market, underground market, so it is illegal.
The SEC report, by the way, was mentioned in many of
To open the chance for any question about the 3 parts, guys, it is here. Go ahead.
I was wondering if you look at, so Mohammed and Adham, so if you would combine your Jordan National Cybersecurity Framework and your multiplication, what would be the overall risk exposure for Jordan?
So, you ask about the total risk
So the combination of your national cybersecurity framework, which you just released, as well as the quantification model. So if you would quantify all, you had some, let's say, numbers on the slide which were, let's say, an indication. Did you actually do?
You have a question directed to whose?
Both of you.
Let me take this. So the Jordanian National Cybersecurity Framework is the first framework in the world who's capitalizing on the cyber risk quantification and the FAIR model. It has been recognized by the Fair Institute 2 weeks back that Jordan is in the forefront. As you may know, 2 weeks or 3 weeks back, maybe more, the SEC in the US actually released the regulations where they are asking everyone actually to report cyber risks and the retaliate, which is maybe they didn't mention this explicitly that you need to do cyber risk quantification, but no way on earth that any organization in US private or listed listed company can do this without doing cyber risk quantification. Now, in Jordan, we started this journey one and a half years back. Now, it's not easy actually to adopt the cyber risk quantification. It's, as you saw, it needs heavy understanding of the business, adopting things like activity-based costing in all your services to be able to define and to quantify the risks. But Jordan started a very solid steps in this. They started to teach this in universities. 56 organizations went into one heavy month for enablement.
Just as Mohammed, I think Tom's question is about those indicative numbers, whether those market indication whether they started.
Yeah, those are for demonstration purposes.
Yeah. But you already started that number,
This is how we envisioned that after a few years, after we develop the risk capabilities at each entity. So we aggregate risk profile from each sector. Overall, we have national risk score.
Dashboard.
Yeah, absolutely. Dashboard should give us how Jordan is compared to other countries under the same evaluation criteria.
Okay.
This is to answer your question short. So we have another question.
It's actually not a question, it's just more into just an additive information. I mean, I agree more on the part related to the business model of the attackers. I mean, recently there is a model of the ransom operations where cyber groups like Conti, DarkSide, or many others, they really take that as a business model. The ransomware, like since until 2020, was not a good business model for the attackers because it was just depending, for example, on if there is a vulnerability, right? When you find that vulnerability, you just stop it. It's not good for them. But after 2020, if you just go ahead in the web and search for cyber or actually ransom operations, you'll find that those attackers are targeting more specific organizations. They depend a lot on account takeovers. So, and actually, there's nobody can patch that.
Absolutely.
And that's why if you look at the overall cost of the attack worldwide, it's like 4.5 something million, and for US it's more like 8 million. And I agree on the point related to the risk because I see many organizations focus on ROI. And actually you cannot because
Let's admit those cyber criminals are business leaders.
Exactly.
They are doing even ROI for their activities. So
From their side.
they don't invest in, let's say, attacking a PC or an laptop. They are trying to attack the beast because this is the most rewarding. Yes.
And Mohammed, from my side, the last comment is that from my side as a good guy, I cannot measure the return of investment because what I can measure or quantify is the cost of not investing. That what will be the risk on me if I don't invest in that. And many organizations nowadays, when they see a new solution, I mean, sorry, from vendor background, is they ask about, do you integrate with that to do this? I mean, of course, everyone is doing that. It's just that
to your point, what you mentioned, pardon me, you mentioned something, and Mohammed, you responded to it, that cyber criminals, they're also having that economic mindset.
Exactly.
So let's be honest, all of us. When you've been asked to pay a certain ransom, and you said it's not targeted attack, they do estimate what is the amount of the ransom that you are more likely will be willing to pay than bleed and wait further until you unlock the data.
100%.
And I'm telling you, we mimic that, by the way, I'm not doing a sales pitch, but when we do the tabletop exercises, we mimic that. When let's say as Ibrahim, I do a tabletop for C-level at a huge organization with billions and trillions of dollars, you think about a number that the first question, hey, you wake up in the morning, do a ransomware attack, would you pay? And this is the amount required. And guess what? 30% of people will vote yes, I'm willing to pay, and forget about the headache. And they think that if they pay, it's done. Yeah, it's part of the culture, lack of awareness. So, but yeah, to your point, Mohammed, and talking about yes, to your point, yes, definitely, which goes to your question, sir, which is the economics of the other, the other side of the battle as well.
We thank you for the comments, and you have guys any questions before we conclude our session for today?
Just a roadmap after getting this going.
The framework.
After the framework. Let's expect the next steps.
The next step, we are doing some enablement journey for any entities mixed between government and public. After the enablement, we now expect each entity to be able to build this roadmap over the 16 PC for 1 year ahead. So the NCSC will start enforcing that entity to move and audit on that implementation. So here the audit is not to find that entity, it's just to guide and enable and empower that entity to adopt the principles and develop what it needs of that capabilities. After that 1 year, just assume probably after 1 year now the entity is mature at that development journey, and now they are, for example, testing here in Jordan, capable to identify and to increase the maturity, which is now advanced. I hope this is also guys, ladies, we can answer in Arabic.
Any other questions?
To apartment enablement, by the way, we are lucky. We have from Security Exchange Commission of Jordan, who ladies are part of